first match, but it definitely takes guys a bit longer to achieve the things that I may have achieved at this point. But I attribute that mostly to the fact that I had kick-ass training when I started. Like, I got lucky, to be honest, that I just picked a school that happened to really, really know its stuff. And then I was a Division I athlete before wrestling, so like being coached and like working out at a sport is something that I've known my whole life. So, and also being a huge fan of pro wrestling my whole life helped a lot too.
For sure.
So,
and
like,
you were a catcher at Stonehill or
Holy Cross?
Holy Cross.
So,
yeah.
Yep. So I was a catcher at the College of the Holy Cross for 4 years, and before that, it was a pretty serious high school baseball player. And pretty much baseball was like plan A, B, and C for me. Excuse me.
What about some? Sorry.
No, go ahead.
What about some inspirations? Was it a match? Was it a wrestler? Was it like, man, like I got to do this? Was it pinpointed that or?
Yeah. So when I was a little kid, like my earliest memories of wrestling are my godmother. Her name's Linda. Her mother, who I always called Nana, although I don't know if like your godmother's mother is related to you, and I don't really know, but she was family to me. She was Nana, and Nana was a huge wrestling fan. And thinking about it now, I think Nana took it very seriously. It was very important to her, and she used to watch the old WCW, not the Ted Turner, but like even before then, like the like really southern WCW.
Territorial wrestling.
Yeah, like World Class Championship Wrestling or later World Championship Wrestling. And like Jim Ross was the play-by-play guy, right? And basically, she used to watch it, and she used to bring me in, and her favorite was Ric Flair. And she used to say all the time, whenever he would come out, she'd be like, "That's Ric Flair. He's the best. You watch him because no one does it better than Ric Flair." And so, like, from a young age, I was, like, drilled into my head to the point where, like, me and my godmother, she used to watch me all the time. I would go up there for a little while, but parents were doing whatever. And, like, we would be driving around, and anytime we ever saw a white limousine, like, that's Ric Flair in there, like every single time. Like that's Ric Flair's ride. So without realizing it, I was a huge fan of his growing up, only because the only experience I had with wrestling, I was told by someone I knew very clearly, Ric Flair's best and no one does it better. So, flash forward a few years later, I think it was like 95, 96 or something, and somehow or another, and I don't really know how it happened, I started to see wrestling on TV. I think I might have been flipping through the channels or whatever, but somehow or another, and it just caught my attention, and I think because I had already been exposed to it as a little kid, like, I knew what I was watching, and I, like, caught on immediately. So I was probably like 6, 7, 8 years old, somewhere around there, and I was like so hooked. And the first pay-per-view that I ever had was SummerSlam, I want to say 99? I can't exactly remember. It was Stone Cold and The Undertaker in the main event. It might have been 97. I can't remember.
I'm not sure, yeah. SummerSlam 99?
It was 98. It's 98. So
98.
It's Stone Cold and The Undertaker. Yeah, I just Googled it. I'm terrible at that stuff. I should be better. It's embarrassing. But anyways, so basically, SummerSlam 98 was like the first pay-per-view and I convinced my godmother to get it, and I saw that, and I was just like dialed in. Like, I don't even know if it was a specific match or whatever, but like I can remember everything about that pay-per-view. I can remember like the order that all the wrestlers had their entrances. Like, I remember everybody's songs. Something about it just stuck me forever. And so that pretty much just like, after that, I was like all wrestling all the time for a number of years, and really right up until like almost probably I graduated high school, I was still keeping up with it. But the thing was, is like as I got older, like I didn't dream about being a pro wrestler. Like, I wanted to be a baseball player, so it was definitely like an obsession of mine. But it wasn't like a dream to be a wrestler, other than like, oh, wouldn't that be cool? When I got older, the best match that I saw, like the match that I saw that made me like actually like consider being a pro wrestler, was when Eddie Guerrero wrestled Brock Lesnar for the I think it was the WWF Championship at the time, or was it the I can't remember. It might have been the Universal or something.
I don't know if they made the switch to Universal. Yeah,
I don't know. The title changed. The name of the titles changed like 1,000 times. I don't know what it is. either way, it was Eddie versus Brock, and Goldberg showed up in that match and like spears Brock, and like there's this one part where the three of them are all laying face down on the mat, and the crowd just going absolutely insane. And I remember watching that, thinking like, wow, I think I could do that. Like that's so cool, you know. But it's something like I think I'd want to do that. You know, it's so great. But I was still going to college to play baseball at the time, so it was still just like a back burner idea. And then, believe it or not, the thing that actually like inspired me to become a pro wrestler was the CM Punk Best in the World documentary. I watched it. I was sitting at work one day, this after college and everything. Baseball was done and everything. So I'm working like a desk job, and I'm just bored out of my skull, and I just can't hack it. And I'd heard about CM Punk in the past because my friend Josh growing up used to get like the tapes delivered, and CM Punk was like a big popular name in the tape trading days, I guess. So I remember thinking like, I remember this guy, but I had kind of fallen out of wrestling at that point, so I never really saw him wrestle in the WWE. But I saw the documentary was out, and I was like, I feel like I can remember this kid from back in the day, and like something about like I remember my friend saying like, yo, you got to see this guy CM Punk, he's so good. So I figured like, oh, what the heck, let me watch this DVD and see what all the fuss is about. And I watched the DVD, and like his whole thing about how he's just like some dude from Chicago that became the best wrestler in the world, right? And just the whole thing about it was just like, wow, man, I could definitely do that. Like if that dude could do that, like I could do everything he's doing. That was just my brain working like that. Like, oh, that's exactly what I could do. And that's kind of what inspired me to seek out the wrestling school and everything. Really, it's just kind of like a series of events throughout my life, I suppose.
When you started making that transition, you know, from like baseball training every day as you know that particular sport, to go from that to training to another sport like wrestling, obviously there's different things you focus on. Was there someone you kind of modeled like your wrestling after, like your moves wise? Like you mentioned like way back in the start of the podcast how there's different ways you can wrestle, like high flying, like grappling. Like was there a certain style you kind of monitored, like saw and were like, all right, I can do that? Or was it a specific wrestler? Was it moves, or just like overall like taking a look at yourself and like physically, like what am I capable of doing, where are my strengths and weaknesses?
Sure, man. So if you watch me wrestle, you'll notice there's a big Ric Flair influence in what I do. Just a lot of I've seen a lot of Ric Flair matches, so he's definitely a huge influence on my work in the ring.
I certainly can tell, like on the mic and like.
Sure. When I first started, I had to like try to not do a Ric Flair impression at times, like especially like when I first started doing matches on my own and stuff. I found like I was becoming very clone-y at times, but I think I've sorted that.
Blow the hair out at all?
I don't know if I've blown it out, but I mean, I've got like the modern day version of his beautiful feathered hair. I get the long flowing locks with maybe the platinum bleach blonde is out, but I've got the ombre tips. So
you got some healthy lettuce. I'll give you that. Healthy.
Thanks, man. Well, damn, man. I'll be honest. I never thought at 28 years old I'd have hair like down my back. I never thought that would be what my life would be like, but I'm happy it is.
Here you are, man.
Yeah, and then as far as like the training stuff goes, I mean, training as a baseball player is different because baseball is very quick twitch, and baseball players ideally are sinewy and strong and whippy and fast and limber and loose. And wrestlers, I mean, the game's changed. I mean, you don't have a lot of guys like Hulk Hogan walking around. I mean, you have a lot of guys like Hulk Hogan ever, but you don't have a lot of like big jacked up bodybuilder types anymore. It's just the styles have changed a bit, tastes have changed, physiques have changed, and training types have changed. So it's kind of more, wrestling has become more of a smaller, agile sport as opposed to like a big powerhouse game like it's been in years past. But even still, I mean, it's definitely a big man's game when it really gets down to it. I mean, there's a lot of smaller guys that have had loads of success, but I mean, at the end of the day, like you can't argue size. So the big thing with the difference is like wrestling, I had to adopt some like bodybuilding techniques, powerlifting techniques, and focus on adding size as opposed to adding like whippy, snappy strength.
Right.
And that was a was a cool change for me because I pretty much now I get to like stack on muscles and train for more of an aesthetic, which is kind of neat. Whereas my whole life I didn't really put any thought into that. It was more about like my athletic performance.
Yeah, and you mentioned like obviously size over, you know, maybe athleticism and quickness. Even now, like you see the faces and even like the heels of, you know, the companies now, how they're pushing like the big, strong muscle guys like, you know, Roman Reigns, and kind of ignoring even like the fan favorites. And now it's so much harder for guys like, you know, Daniel Bryan or even like CM Punk when he was up. Like he was never like the biggest guy, but it's just so much harder.
No, and it really, it's because, like, it's just always, it's something about it, man. It's this big, huge dude that, like, it's always going to be there. You know what I mean? There's always going to be that deal, and it's just hard to argue. I mean, wrestling is a sport where, like, it's hard to argue that the bigger guy's not going to win at times, you know?
True.
But that being said, like times have really changed, and I mean, like even though there are guys that are like big, huge dudes that are on top, there's also guys that aren't. I mean, like look at what like the Bullet Club's doing. I mean, they're maybe not in the WWE, but they're guys that are creating their own brand, doing their own thing, and you know they may not be the biggest dudes on the planet. And even in the WWE, you got guys like AJ Styles. He's not 6'5". You know, 250. He's still a big athletic guy, but he's not, you know, your Land of the Giants type. So it's interesting. I think wrestling more than anything is a variety focus, if you will. So you know, you need elephants, you need trapeze artists, you need magicians, you know, you need the bearded lady, you need them all.
Yeah, even
speaking of the Bullet Club, have you guys got a letter from Stamford, Connecticut yet about throwing the old Four Horsemen sign? I know those guys got in trouble throwing the two sweets up.
No, that's true.
You guys
yeah.
got any?
I don't know what you're talking about. The Four Horsemen sign. We just put up 4 fingers for the point of the crown.
I like it.
I love it. I love it. So let's talk about, I guess, some moves. So obviously some finishing moves. I think, do you have specific ones that you created? I think you have, I'm on Wikipedia now checking them up. I didn't even know, like Glue Factory Mustang Ride?
Yeah, baby. So the Glue Factory is the submission maneuver.
Okay.
It's a pretty unique one. I actually just tweeted a picture of it. You can check it out on my Twitter at Horse TKO. There's a sweet little picture. It's a nasty little move. I don't really know what the actual move would be called, but it's like a bow and arrow of sorts. It'll jack your knee up pretty good.
Really?
No, yeah, check it out. Look on my Twitter. There's a picture of it. It's stretching this guy out pretty hard with it.
What about the Mustang Ride?
Mustang Ride is you ever seen Matt Hardy's Twist of Fate?
Oh yeah.
It's like that, but way cooler.
And you actually wrestled Matt Hardy, right? Before.
Times. Actually, before me and Vinny were known as the Kingdom, we were tagging around just to, you know, just working together, doing shows for a few different companies like the Northeast Wrestling, Chaotic Wrestling, and we actually wrestled the Hardy Boys in Cameron, North Carolina, which was pretty sweet.
Oh, wow.
Or no, not Cameron. I'm sorry, that's not true. It was. Man, I'm not going to remember the town, but it was in North Carolina, and I don't think it was very far from Cameron, so it was pretty sweet. The place was jammed out, going crazy for the Hardy Boys, and there's me and Vinny there, just beating them up.
Yeah, dude, Jeff Hardy's by far, you know, my favorite wrestler growing up.
Yeah, hard to argue, man. He's a cool dude. Actually,
so entertaining.
Dude, the Hardy. Here's a cool story, man. One time, the Hardy Boys bought a sushi dinner. We went out to sushi dinner one time with the Hardy Boys, and all of a sudden, Jeff just like got up, disappeared. We're like, "What the hell happened to Jeff? He's just gone." And it was around the time when it was time to pay the bill, of course, right? So we're like, "Where the hell did Jeff Hardy go?" And then all of a sudden, it was I think it was like a Korean style sushi place. So they had like a million different like plates and things. Like they just keep bringing out food, kind of deal. Yeah. And so, it basically like all of a sudden the lady comes over and she starts scooping up the plates, and we're like, wait a minute, where's our bill? And she goes, oh no, it's okay. Colored hair man, he pay. And we're like, what? Really? And then all of a sudden we all just pull out cash to give a tip, and she goes like this, oh no, Good tip.